We wanted to make me, my spouse, and Adai a joint creative effort between husband and wife. Right now, I'm sitting down with Austin to get a little insight into how he created the world in which we find ourselves, the land of Moir. This is Gwyneth, also known as Octavia Marguerite Sinclair, and welcome to this special episode of Me, my spouse, and Adai. Right now I'm sitting down with my husband, Austin, and we are going to dive into his brain a little bit, and he is going to tell us about his creative process in creating this campaign and the world that my character finds herself. So hello, Austin.
Hello.
Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right, we'll see how much I feel like saying. But I am Austin, as she said. I'm Gwyneth's husband. Have
Indeed.
been for 2.5-ish years at this point.
Yeah, coming up on 3, probably. Soon.
So that's pretty fun. I'm a PhD candidate in physical chemistry. So if anyone out there knows what EPR means, hit me up. And we cannot chat about it because I don't want to.
That is work. This is play.
This is play. This is fun times. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your experience with, with Dungeons and Dragons and other forms of tabletop RPGs.
Yeah. So I feel, I was going to say, I know there are people out there who are like, I started playing D&D at 1st edition. I did not, but I do feel like a little bit of a D&D hipster because I got in before the 5th edition craze. So I started, I know, right? I started playing 4th edition, which takes a lot of heat, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Started playing 4th edition in college with my roommates. We had been interested in playing D&D, but there was still a bit of that sort of negative, nerdy connotation. But we were just like, you know what? We don't have any other friends anyway. Screw it.
So you were studying chemistry.
I was studying chemistry. So I bought the 4th edition starter set, and we started playing through the basic starter campaign. I made my first character. He was an elven rogue named Veldin the Swift. And he died in the climax of that starter set battle. Necromancer killed him. But that was my first experience, and we continued playing. We went and we bought a 4th edition campaign, one of the pre-written modules, and we started running that. I think it was the Scepter Tower of Spellguard or something like that. But I we rotated DMing duties, and so I started as a player, but over the course of the campaign, I sort of migrated into dungeon mastering. So that was my first experience, and we played off and on, but that was right sort of at the end of 4th edition's tenure, and 5th edition released shortly after that. And so I know I played a couple one-shots with my family. I played a couple one-shots with you, and we were part of a couple session campaign with some other friends at the end of college. But then graduated, moved to, as you said in your interview, moved to a new city with no real groups that were active. So we decided to start playing one-on-one, and I dungeon mastered, and I have enjoyed that campaign greatly, so I'm excited about this.
Well, we are excited, and I am excited to be campaigning with you as well. So thinking that, seeing how you have a decent amount of experience DMing, actually, several years, and you've DM'd both one-on-ones with me, with the Sarasa campaign, and then also DM'd, full party campaigns. How is DMing, one-on-one different than DMing for a full, 5 or 7 person party?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. I've definitely had more experience DMing one-on-one. Currently, As far as DMing an actual group through a campaign, I've done a one-shot or two, but we had a couple sessions of Curse of Strahd before that group disintegrated, and then we've got
Yeah.
we've got a group going currently that seems pretty strong. We're what, 10 or so sessions in, so that's exciting.
I think we had our 9th session, so a record breaker finally.
I know, it's so, oh, gosh, it warms my heart. But anyway, yeah, it's very different. So I think the nice.
Yeah, what's good and different about that? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Say, DMing for a full party is nice because you can basically, there's lots of skills and different abilities that can be used to overcome sort of any obstacle. And if one person gets stuck at some puzzle you created that maybe you didn't fully think through, or you were like, oh, maybe I had this particular solution in mind, but they're going in a completely different direction. There's lots of room to sort of like, people, lots of people will come up with lots of creative things, whereas with one person, if they don't come to a certain conclusion, or maybe they try something and it doesn't work, and they can't think of anything else, you're both just kind of like, well, I guess we'll make something up from here. At the same time, one of the nice things about DMing one-on-one is that when you have a full party, you've got 4 or 5 people, and as the DM, I don't know about other DMs, but I'm personally trying to, make sure everyone is contributing, make sure everyone has their time in the spotlight, make sure everyone, shares the important things, and, it's not one person always doing the cool plot stuff and somebody else who's just like, I'm along for the ride. So when I only have one person, it's nice because, they always get the spotlight all of the time. You can tailor the story specifically to that one person and that one, their defining traits. So you don't have a bunch of different backstories and a bunch of different conflicting things to weave together. You've just got one. Right. And I know, sometimes in character creation, one of the tropes that people sometimes try to avoid is the sort of like chosen one arc, because if you're a chosen one in a group of 5 people, are the other 4 people not chosen ones? Are they just like your handmaids or servants? But that sort of chosen one thing works really well for one-on-one, and you can make a very special character without having to worry about stepping on anyone else's toes. So I think that's fun.
Yeah, that totally makes sense too. And then with this contrast between the full party and the one-on-one, what's your process? So the campaign that we're going to be running is a homebrew, and the one-on-one campaign that we had previously was also a homebrew. So what is your process when making a world and making a campaign?
Actually, I thought of one more thing I want to add.
That is also
to the
totally
previous
fine. We can
say,
refer back to that previous question too.
The huge thing is combat balancing sucks one-on-one. It's very hard to do.
Giant weasel.
I was going to say, as Dungeon Masters know, the sort of CR system in the Monster Manual is more of a guideline than a rule anyway, and when you only have one person, it just gets very interesting to try to make combats that are not gonna just murder your one party member while also being, engaging enough and interesting enough. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And as coming from a player who's almost been murdered and has also, been able to defeat things easily, I can understand how that would be kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
So thinking back again into that creative process in the overarching and the broad sense, what's your process with when making a world and making a campaign? And what goes into, do you start small and then go big, or do you go big and then go small, or what exactly do you do?
So for me personally, this world is that this campaign will take place in is kind of fun because this is the same world that I'm running our personal group campaign in. This is the same world that we ran our previous one-on-one campaign in. So each time we play in it, we sort of build into the lore and the history, and I think that's really interesting. But I don't know if I necessarily have a process for world building itself. I do for campaign making, and I'll talk about that in a second. But this world is fun because we both sort of had a hand in making this. And I remember sitting on a park bench with you talking about, this really, fun idea. And it started with that there was a giant, like, mountain cat guardian inside the mountains of the world. And that sort of shaped everything from there. So I've taken this idea and just sort of built on it slowly. And I definitely start small and then build out. For our first campaign, I made like a village, and that was it. And then I expanded, she's going to go here. So I had to build this town. And, after that, I generally had I had a continent map, and I had different cities and a couple like bullet points as to what they were, but I didn't really flesh anything out. And so going into this sort of campaign, I wanted to flesh things out a bit more, make the world feel a bit more alive and organic. And so the first thing I thought about was I nailed down a planar system, and I nailed down the deities, the pantheon, and the religions, because I think that forms a lot of what sort of how the world is shaped and the different cultures. If you can nail down, well, they worship this person, or they revolve around this core belief. So I did that first because I already had, as I mentioned, a map. I already had general cities and demographics. So I fleshed out the religions, and then I went through and based on sort of the lore from the previous campaign and these new thoughts, I went through and generated a step-by-step history from the start of the world up to the current day, and then sort of branched out from there. So it's still not fully fleshed out. It's one of those things where I'll continue building it as you continue exploring it, and you can add on to it, and I can add on to it, and it's sort of a collaborative effort.
Yeah, that is something that is really cool. I do distinctly remember being part of that initial like, think of this about this world, and that's been really cool to kind of have that collaborative effort too. But then obviously you've taken the the majority of that work. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about the world we do find ourselves in?
Well, the land of Moir. And it's interesting you should mention that because you are also responsible for just making the entire city-state of Malik, which we may or may not visit. I'm not sure where things will go.
I know. I always have a little bit of my heart in Malik.
Yeah, so that's a Dragonborn city that I had not planned, but she was like, I come from this place. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess there's a Dragonborn city out in the desert now. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, this world is called Moir. It used to be called, I think, like Moiran, but you pointed out that sounded like moron, and so I changed it to Moiris. And then I was like, I didn't like the sound of that either, so I shortened it to Moir, which I like. So I'm not going to go into the deep histories of what I have. I did sort of type up the historical context that this particular campaign is going to find itself in. So the quick Cliff Notes version of this world is that long ago, basically the continent was entirely elves, ancient elves, and the three gods of the world had given them had sent down the dragons to sort of watch over and be guardians of the land. So there were one each of the chromatic dragons, one each of the metallic dragons, who were sort of the protectors. They were called the Sacred Tribunal. They were the protectors of the land. Through a course of events, a bunch of monsters in the depths of the sea known as the Aboleth sort of poisoned the minds of the chromatic dragons and turned them against the metallic dragons and the elves. And there was a huge war that was fought between these two sides, the Aboleth and the chromatic dragons, and the metallic dragons and the elves, which lasted for a long time. Lots of people died, and eventually it ended that the Aboleth and the chromatic dragons sort of won. they slew the metallic dragons, and the rest of the elves retreated deep into tunnels underground, and sort of they ruled the land for a while, and eventually they started getting into deep, dark devil magics, and the gods eventually decided that they needed to step in and intervene, and so they sent the Judgment, where they sort of coalesced their essences into one sort of harbinger or avatar of themselves that went across the land and purged it of the dragons and the aboleth, and banished the aboleth to a different plane, and killed the chromatic dragons and imprisoned their souls into magical artifacts, so it was a punishment, so they would basically be imprisoned forever. So they'd always be there, but they wouldn't have the freedom and the power they had. But so after that point, a period of unknown time went by before new life sprang up on the continent, and now this life was in the form of elves again, but also humans, dwarves, gnomes, etc., all the other races. And so they started the society that we find ourselves in. And yeah, I think that's about what I'm going to say. There's a few more things that have happened in recent context, but we can get into that in the actual campaign.
Sounds good. That is a good overview and some good historical context to kind of seeing, these would have been stories that Octavia would have known, growing up, and kind of legends and stuff. So I think it's really helpful to kind of know where she's coming from and know where the entire world has been so far.
Yeah. So I know, like, part of the thing in creating this world and creating this campaign is I've been really sort of trying to struggle with coming up with original ideas, because some people say there are no original ideas, and then you look at some other podcasts or other campaigns or other creators, and they're like, wow, that's a really cool idea. But I wanted this to be some very stereotypical Dungeons and Dragons things. I wanted dungeons, I wanted dragons, and I just want to put my own spin on that. So it might not be, a war between dragons and elves. May not be the most original thing in the world, but I think I wanted to put my little flavor on it. And as long as we're having fun, I think that should be enough.
I definitely agree and think so too. So kind of looking forward prospectively, since we've, talked a lot about our creative process and getting to the point where we currently are,
Yes.
what are you looking forward to most about starting and continuing this podcast? And then what are you also kind of seeing as potential challenges or, obstacles that we'll have to kind of get over in the coming months?
Well, I'm looking forward to just playing this again. I'm having a lot of fun playing DMing the group, but this is also fun DMing, one-on-one. So I'm looking forward to making a new story with you, and
yay, me too.
and finding out some new things about the world and about what has happened. Just so everyone knows, this campaign is actually taking in the past, before either the previous campaign I ran with Gwyneth, or the current group personal campaign I'm running. So this is sort of defining the history of those campaigns. So I think that'll be very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
A prequel, but good ones.
Yes, a good prequel. No trade embargoes here. That's a lie. There actually is a trade embargo.
Oh dear. Tax! I know
taxes,
about that.
Yes, intergalactic taxes. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if anyone is going to listen to this or give their input. So I think it'd be nice to see if other people enjoy what we do. So I think that would be cool. But that's also one of the challenges, and I'm generally a self-conscious person, and uploading this to the internet is terrifying, to say the least. So anyone listening, please be kind. Please be kind to us. So I don't think that'll necessarily be a challenge, but it will be. But I'm mostly just excited to start this. I think I've got some fun ideas for the actual campaign itself. I'm very excited for some of the things I've cooked up over the past few weeks, and I'm excited to see your character in action. So I think that will be a lot of fun.
I think so too, and I am really excited to see the ways in which, Octavia is going to interact in the world and see how the world's, different and the ways that she's going to change it. And I think that's really exciting to be in such a dynamic world and with a dynamic character and how the world and the character are going to kind of change each other and, develop over time, which totally makes sense because that's how actual worlds and actual people develop. So I'm
True.
really excited about that.
True, true, true.
Well, thank you so much for telling us about the world. Is there anything else that you would like to tell our 5 listeners, or times 5 listeners, prior to heading out?
Just, yeah, again, thank you for listening. If you enjoy what you are listening to, please listen to our actual episodes and be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to us because that would be wonderful and it would make my heart be very happy.